souls that engage in dark behavior outside of divinity, divinity will always, always, always nudge, pull, tug you back towards it. It always does. That is one of the reasons everything's lasted so long, because everybody was like, but divinity always does this. These ones have partially been trained and partially chose a path whereby they could turn it down. They could actually disconnect from divinity and tune it down. So when those nudges and those twinges and those things came up, it's like they turned the channel. And they have no knowledge, they have no feeling. Divinity is not working on them to bring them back in line. People notice the extreme cases of this, they call them here psychopaths. These are ones who do not have that connection, do not have empathy. And it's not something you could turn it back on. If it happens once or twice, but not all the time, then you could try to work on it.
Yeah.
But if it becomes their way of being, that they basically just, whenever anything starts to feel uncomfortable, they just turn it off and do whatever they want, then there's nothing left to be done. If they're not allowing divinity to keep them in balance with divinity, then there's nothing left to be done. There is an extreme sense of possibility that if a soul had done that a lot, but they truly, truly, truly wanted to come back in line with divinity and they wanted this cleared out, there is an extreme thing that God can do would blast through them and blast out all the ability to turn it down, turn it off, and dissipate it all. But that would be extremely difficult because all the things they had turned down and turned off, they would have to feel and be able to hear it, and it would be extremely uncomfortable and to a point traumatizing. They would have to God would have to blast through. Then they'd have to go into basically an almost catatonic state where they'd have to feel the stuff, heal it, and allow divinity to start processing it all. It's almost like sort of coma state where they aren't taking out any information from the outside. They're only dealing with this stuff on the inside, and it has to be realigned, and it would take time for all those things to be processed and realigned on a soul level. It would be a very, very extreme case, an extreme process, because these ones had always avoided divinity. So when they have to go through all the divinity, moving through and adjusting them, they will most likely, even if they started on the process, would opt out because they don't like the movement of divinity. And so once you get to a certain level of this being a part of your life, that becomes who you are, the turning down, turning off the flow of divinity. It becomes very, 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 very difficult to come back. Not saying it's impossible. God has to blast through and remove all the things they've done to hide, turn it down, tune it down. And then they have to get very still, have no outside stimuli, and just be still and allow divinity to work without interfering. And just be still and just allow it to occur. And these ones have always manipulated things to avoid things. So their reaction to this much hitting is going to be to try to twist, manipulate, what if, rationalize, and they can't do that. They try to do that, that gets blasted away too. That's why singularity is, it's not what people would think it is. God created a singularity to suck people in that are bad. That's not really what it is. That's not really what it really is. It was something that was, this is from a perspective. It's actually almost the same thing that's happening to everyone. It is that which is breaking through all the distortions, all the things that don't allow them to align with divinity, breaking through that and bringing them healing. It's the exact same thing. For many people, when they experience it, it's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, this is feeling better. Oh, I'm thinking clearer. Oh, I just know what to do now. But for the ones who are the most distorted, when that happens, their experiences is as it's taking away all those distortions, that's who they were. They lose their identity, they lose who they are, and the more they grasp onto that, it's the uncomfortableness of it, their uncomfortableness. Whenever they feel the uncomfortableness of divinity, they manipulate and twist. So as they're feeling uncomfortable as it's being taken away, they're taking more of themselves and trying to pull it into that. And so more until that's why it's like they just everything
goes away.
It's not like, okay, on the one side you have everybody who's being realigned for and going into divinity, and over here separately is the singularity. It's really the same thing. It's just how the individual would experience it depends upon how you act and react. And now there are some that are still trying to, but as more is taken away, there's still something there that can be realigned and fixed and made whole again. But there are some that, no matter what, they just keep doing this. And there's a point whereby the chances of them being able to go through the rest of the process and be okay becomes more and more difficult. That's why we're seeing with this last big burst of divinity coming through God, that there was a quick and sudden divergence. Those who started going more and more this towards realignment and moving with divinity, and those who are going quickly, not a little bit, quickly down, because there's so much divinity. They're throwing everything they can to fight against it. Yeah. And as they throw something against it, they lose it. They keep doing that. It's like they're flailing. Yes, that's a good word. They're flailing against divinity and throwing everything they are against divinity and thus losing it. And they can't, if they could just sit there for a second, realize what's going on and say, wait a second, I don't want to do that, and stop. They could stop the process of losing, could be healed. But the chances are that their nature has become not to do that.